Hi, it's Steph, and we're at Lowe's, and they have some new annuals, perennials, trees, and shrubs in time for fall planting. So let's go ahead and take a look at the September inventory at Lowe's. There are lots of these drop-in-bloom ready-fill containers that you can just put into your planters, and they are ready to go for your fall decor. Now this is a really pretty mum. It has a really large bloom, and this is the perfect condition to buy your mum in, when it is still nicely tightly budded and you just have a couple of blooms so that you can see what color they're going to be. And this is the way to get the longest amount of time out of your mum. They also like to be pretty moist and they dry out quickly. So the best way to keep these happy is to keep them consistently watered, and if possible, plant them into a larger container with more soil so that they will retain more moisture. But some really pretty options here. There are shades of red and orange and yellow ready to go for your fall displays. The ready refill containers, this is a medium size which fits an 11.7 decorative planter, and they are $20.98. There are also some smaller varieties that come in this little basket. This looks like a bushel basket for $11.98. And some croton, which is a tropical plant. So it does not like the cold weather, but it will do pretty well in your fall displays until you start getting colder and we're nearing our first frost. At that point, it'd be time to bring it in to a warmer spot, but it has really beautiful foliage color that accents the fall colors really nicely. And this is a plastic container that sort of looks like galvanized tin, and these are $14.98. And some pansies, which are another annual for cool weather. They come out in the spring and they also make an appearance again in the fall. And this is a variety pack. You get 18 pansy plugs for $16.98. And pansies like full sun. And there's some shades of orange as well as blues and purples and yellow. Very pretty. Something that I love to use in my fall containers is heuchera or coral bells. Look at this beautiful dark and moody foliage. And what's great about using perennials in your containers is that once you're done with them in your container, you can repurpose them and plant them out in the garden. So these are shade or part shade plants needing 1 to 3 hours of sun. If they're going to get any sun, you want to plant them in morning sun, which is less harsh than afternoon sun. And they do send up some bloom stalks at some point in the summer. And they are primarily a foliage plant. So $8.98 for this here. They're mostly deer and rabbit resistant. They like a moist but well-draining soil, and they're hardy down to zone 4 or negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And this variety is called Timeless Night. And another really beautiful mid to late summer bloomer that will continue through the fall, coneflowers or echinacea. And even when the blooms start to fade, you still get a lot of visual interest with these beautiful cones in the center that our bird friends, the yellow finches, absolutely love to snack on the seeds on the cones of the coneflower. So these here are the Cheyenne Spirit, and the Cheyenne Spirit is beautiful because you'll get multiple colors on just one plant. You'll get shades of orange and pink, coral, yellow, and even cream. And coneflowers like a soil that leans dry, drains very well, and full sun in order for them to do best. If they sit in soggy soil, you can lose your plant because they'll rot at the crown. And these here are $24.98. They come in this faux whiskey barrel type of planter, and they're a 2.5 gallon. They're hardy to a zone 4, so coneflowers are very hardy, down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. I find that they are mostly deer resistant in my garden, but the bunnies do like to chew on them. So you have to protect them from bunnies if you deal with that in your garden. And you can see that this one here has some pink, and then this one has some orange, kind of a hot orange red. Very pretty. And a great gold evergreen for your garden is this here. This is a false thread gold cypress, and it has a really soft kind of texture, really graceful, wispy kind of habit, and just really beautiful. It needs full sun in order to have the most golden color. If you have it in more shade, it'll sort of get green and muddy like what you see on the undersides of the leaves here. So best color and full sun. It's also deer and rabbit resistant in my garden. They don't touch it. And the best part is that these are Monrovia shrubs in a 1 gallon container, and they are only $9.98. So this is a special that Lowe's is having on these small containers. They're a number 1, but they're 2.46 liter. So they'll be really easy to plant this size root ball. And this gold charm thread branch cypress likes full sun, easy care, and multi-season beauty. So now as we head into the winter where all of our perennials will be dormant, it's wonderful to add winter interest with evergreen shrubs. This one here says that it likes full sun, water when the top 2 inches of soil is dry. So this over time will be a pretty drought tolerant plant. It is hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And it says it's an average size, slowly growing to 6 feet tall and 8 feet wide. And you can keep it smaller with pruning. In fact, I have a video on my channel that I had shaped one of these into a small topiary tree when it outgrew the space that I had it planted in. And I can link that below for you to check out. There are also some boxwoods in these 998 containers by Monrovia. So if you're looking to plant a hedge this fall, this is a great time to plant in the fall. The weather is still relatively cool, so less stress on the plants. There's still time for them to develop roots in the soil that is still warm from the summer, and we naturally get more moisture in the fall, which means you would have to water less. So these here are the green velvet boxwood. It says to plant them in full and part sun. And the great thing about boxwood is that they are an evergreen that can take part sun, and many evergreens can't. They're also deer resistant, which is wonderful. And you can shape them into topiaries, into balls, into a hedge, into any shape you prefer. So this one here says it is a full-bodied boxwood, well suited for dense, low hedges. It retains its rich green color through winter, which is important because some types of boxwoods can kind of take on a bit of a bronzy appearance. So if you really like the green all year round, that is something you want to look for. You want to make sure that there isn't one that will turn bronze in the winter. This variety gets to be about 4 by 4, so 4 feet tall, 4 feet wide. And so many shrubs. Now, the fall being a wonderful time to plant, you're going to see a lot more shrubs and evergreens in the garden centers and a lot less perennials at this time of year. But let's go ahead and see what we can find. Another beautiful evergreen that I have in my garden and I absolutely love, it is the blue star juniper. Now this has a gorgeous blue-gray coloring that stays this color all year round. The deer do not touch it, and it is low growing, so it makes it a perfect option for the front of a border. Now I've had mine in my garden for 12 years. It is pretty much full grown, and it is only about 3 by 4 in diameter and only about maybe 18 inches in height, so a great size shrub. The blue star juniper likes full sun in order for it to have this beautiful blue coloring. It gets to be, it says 2 to 3 feet in height, which is not true. I find that they max out at about 18 to 2 feet in height at max, and 3 to 4 in width is correct. And they are hardy to a zone 4, down to -20 degrees Fahrenheit. And they are deer resistant. And the blue star juniper is $21.98, and this is a 1.71 gallon container. Another beauty is the Fire Chief Arborvitae. I purchased this for my garden 2 years ago, and I absolutely love it. So not only does it have the most beautiful chartreuse yellow-green color in the spring, in the fall it starts getting these pink tips, almost like a bronze color, and then it goes bronze in the winter, which offers a lot of interest. It's almost like a red color. You can kind of see the tips changing over in the photo here. So the Arborvitae Fire Chief, let's check out the specs here, is a full sun shrub. It gets to be 4 by 4 in size, and it is hardy in zones 5 through 8. And they kind of grow in a rounded, mounded habit. So a really pretty and cool evergreen. And these are 1 gallons for $16.98. Now here's an evergreen that I don't like, and this is a euonymus, and it's sometimes called winter creeper, and they kind of like climb, and they can very quickly intertwine themselves around other plants. So you got to be careful with this one. If you can keep it trimmed and pruned, it might be a good option, but otherwise it can get a little bit unruly. So this is the Emerald Gaty euonymus, and let's check out the specs on this one. It looks like in the picture that it grows in a bit of a shrub kind of mounded, rounded habit. But from what I've experienced with these types of plants, they usually start sending up these tall pieces that kind of start winding on things. And they are hardy in zones up to a zone 5, down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. It says the mature size is 4 by 4. And it doesn't say anything about deer resistance. So let me know what your experience is with this type of plant in your garden. And if you're looking to plant some shrubs this fall that will bloom for you in the spring, azalea could be an option. So azalea is a spring blooming shrub. It will have these beautiful trumpet-shaped blooms in the spring at some point in mid-spring, usually after the rhododendrons. And it has recently been classified as a type of rhododendron, as these small, shiny evergreen leaves, and rhododendrons and azaleas are understory trees. They prefer to be in a part shade location. If you have them in too much sun, they can start to get stressed. I actually had an azalea that was planted planted in a little too much sun and it became infested with azalea lace bugs. And I had to treat it with BT, and finally I moved it to a more shaded location, and it is much happier and has bounced back beautifully. So something to keep in mind if you are going to plant azalea, definitely find a spot where it is going to get part shade. And they are hardy up to a zone 5 or down to -10 degrees Fahrenheit. And they get to be 24 inches in height and 18 inches in width. Now, in general, azaleas range from anywhere from 2 to 4 feet tall and wide to a little bit larger depending on age. And here are some rhododendrons, and you can see that they have a larger leaf. So this is a broadleaf evergreen with really beautiful shiny green foliage that stays this way all year round. And these are an understory tree as well, so part shade. So plant them under the canopy of, say, deciduous trees. So in the fall, when they lose their foliage, these shrubs will get just enough sun to form their buds and give them beautiful blooms come spring. And then in the hottest part of the season, towards late spring, when all of the trees are leafed out, in summer, they will be shaded from that hot sun. And that will keep them really happy. And this here is the English Rosum rhododendron, which is one of the more popular varieties with those large pinkish purple kind of blooms. And these are $36.98, and this looks like it is a 2.33 gallon container. And they also have this variety, which is the Rhododendron, which is a pink variety as well. They also have 1 gallon containers for $15.98, which will make them easier to plant. I do find that they are pretty slow growing, so in this case, I would recommend going with the biggest size that you can afford for a more instant impact. But if you have time, this is a good option at $15.98. And here's another shrub that blooms in late summer, early fall, and this is Abelia. And look at all these beautiful little white bell-shaped blooms. So this is a great source of late season food for our pollinator friends. It also has a really pretty shiny foliage and some red stems on this variety. So a really cool shrub. And let's check out the specs on this Abelia. This is the Sherwood Abelia, and it likes full sun, so 6+ hours of direct sun per day. It has spring and summer interest. These are $24.98. It says outstanding blossoms and a mounding growth habit. And they get to be 3 feet in height and 4 feet in width, and they're hardy down to a zone 6. And what's also really cool about this is even after the blooms have faded, you have these bracts that kind of have a little bit of a rosy, kind of orangey color. And the gorgeous candy corn spirea that I talk about ad nauseum. I have this in my garden. I have 2 of them, and I absolutely love them. Look at this gorgeous color as we head into fall. This is exactly what mine looks like in my garden right now. It is stunning. So this is a very long season interest spirea. It will start in late winter with beautiful red foliage as it breaks dormancy, and then it'll transition to colors of orange before going a bright yellow and chartreuse green. And then in the mid-spring, early summer, you will start getting some clusters of hot pink blooms, very similar to the color on this spirea right beside it. Just gorgeous. It is also a more compact version of spirea. You can see it here in this photo paired with other perennials. The double play candy corn spirea is a proven winner's color choice shrub. It likes sun. It is hardy in zones 4 through 7 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. It has colorful foliage. It is a petite shrub, getting to be 1.5 to 2 feet tall and wide. I would say that it's closer to 2 to 3 feet tall and wide, at least from my experience growing this in my garden. And if it's happier, it might even get a little bit bigger. But gorgeous shrub. Now this one here is a 2 gallon for $27.98. And another variety of spirea. This one has green foliage and is currently in bloom with these really pretty hot pink clusters of blooms. And this is another proven winners variety called the double play doozy spirea. Let's check out the size on this one. So it is hardy in USDA growing zones 3 through 8 or down to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Gets to be 2 to 3 feet tall and wide and has colorful foliage, petite shrub, and reblooming. So it's possible that because it is reblooming, it is currently reblooming now in almost fall, so late summer, fall. Very pretty. This is a 2 gallon for $27.98. And a beautiful dark foliage shrub that just started to show up in my garden centers this year, it is the crepe myrtle. And the reason for that is because here in the Northeast, we were a zone 6 and just recently bumped up to a zone 7A. So from a 6B to a 7A, which opens up some planting options. And this here is the center stage red crepe myrtle by Proven Winners. Now these can be grown as a large shrub or a small tree. So it is hardy in USDA growing zones 6B or down to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. It gets to be 6 to 12 feet tall and 8 feet wide. It likes sun, has colorful foliage, and is disease resistant. And the best part is that you get these late season blooms. Look at these beautiful blooms. Gorgeous. They actually look more coral to me than they do red, but I really love this foliage. It is stunning. And these are in a 2-gallon container for $27.98. It also comes in center stage coral, and you can see that the coral color is a bit more on the pink side, where the red has a bit more of what I would consider a coral color, but both very beautiful. And if you're looking to create a privacy hedge, a living fence, this fall, it is the perfect time to plant some evergreens. And they have lots of arborvitae options, both the emerald green arborvitae and the green giant. I do have a comparison video on my channel if you're wondering which one would be a better fit for you, and I will go ahead and link that below. There are some key differences both in size, in their growth habit, as well as in deer resistance. And these are 5-gallon containers for $59.98. In the video that I made, I included some examples of them planted in real world in my neighbor's yard and in my parents' yard and how they're being used as a living fence. But in general, the key differences between these are that the emerald green arborvitae is not as deer resistant, so they will get chomped by deer. You'll often see them kind of eaten at the bottom to the point where the deer can reach, so they will get kind of misshapen. And they're also more columnar, and they grow in a tighter, more compact growth habit, where the green giant arborvitae has a looser growth habit and they get much larger, hence the name giant. And they're also more deer resistant. And some asters. I actually planted some aster in a container this season and it's looking gorgeous. And what I love about them is that they are also perennial and I can plant them out in the garden afterwards. So this is the Peter III hybrid aster. They like full sun. They bloom in summer and fall. These are $7.98 and they're hardy to a zone 6, getting to be 18 to 24 inches in height and in width. And once they're established as a perennial, they're pretty drought tolerant. And this one is all tightly budded, which is the perfect time to buy them so that they will bloom for you in your garden. And they will have these lavender purple blooms. And if you have a spot in your garden that is difficult to mow or that you lose a lot of soil and you need something for erosion control, here is a great option. This is a living mulch. This is an evergreen that you can plant that will grow in a low kind of horizontal spreading habit, and it will create a ground cover. So over time, you will have to mulch less. This is the Bar Harbor juniper, and I planted a few of these in a hillside garden a few years ago, and they're growing beautifully. They are deer resistant, and they have this blue-gray kind of coloring. They like full sun. These containers here are a 1.5 quart container for $10.98, and they get to be 1 foot in height, 4 feet in width, and they're hardy down to a zone 4 or -20 degrees Fahrenheit. And a couple more beautiful evergreen shrubs. This is the slender hinoki false cypress. I have a few hinokis in my garden. I actually have one of these planted in my front walkway. I included it in an evergreen video that I did recently that I can post below. It is gorgeous. So this here is a Monrovia shrub. It is $44.98. It likes full sun. It's an easy care plant. And it gets to be about 5 feet in width and 8 to 12 feet in height. And it is hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. You can see that it has such a graceful, kind of whimsical habit. It is stunning in the landscape. And this beautiful foliage shrub here is a Lakothaway. And I added one of these to my garden last season. I had it in too much sun, so it crisped up a bit. So I would say that this is a part shade, part sun shrub. If you give it any sun, maybe a morning sun, which is less harsh. The new foliage emerges in beautiful shades of light pink and some cream and green variegation, just really pretty. This is also a Monrovia shrub, and this variety is called the Rainbow Luthacoe, and these are 1.73 gallon containers, and let's see how much they are. Here we are. It is the Rainbow Drooping Luthacoe by Monrovia. It is $56.98, and this looks to be almost a 3-gallon container. And look at this gorgeous golden hinoki false cypress. Has a really gorgeous kind of arching graceful habit as well. It has a gold color, which is amazing for an evergreen. It pops against all the other green in the garden. And as it grows, it will take on more of a pyramidal shape. You can see here in the photo. So this variety likes full to part sun. I would say part sun is probably best when it does say that, because sometimes they will burn a little. So even though they do like sun to keep this golden color, they might prefer a little bit less sun so that they don't burn. So part sun, give it morning sun, and it'll probably be happiest. And it has dramatic foliage. And it is hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And it says it's an average size, quickly reaching 8 to 10 feet tall, 3 to 4 feet wide. And this here is $99. And it looks like it's about a 3-gallon container. And some sedums. Now this is another perennial that is wonderful in the garden. It is pretty in all stages. When it first emerges, it has this gorgeous kind of large rubbery foliage, and then it will start to form its bloom buds, and it looks really pretty in this stage as well. And then towards the end of summer, beginning of fall, it will start to bloom beautifully. And it is a pollinator magnet. The pollinators, the bees, are all over this plant in my garden all day long. Now sedum comes in multiple varieties, and here they have a couple of varieties. They have the Autumn Joy, which is a very traditional type of sedum, and it gets pretty tall. I would say close to 20 inches. Yeah, it says 18 to 24 inches in height and 18 to 24 inches in width. Hardy to a zone 3, and they are water wise. So sedums do not prefer a moist soil. So anywhere that you have soil that leans dry, your sedum will be happiest. It also likes a lot of sun in order for it to bloom best. So pretty dry soil, lots of sun, they'll be really happy. And they're super easy to divide. In fact, when you're planting one of these, if a piece breaks off, you can just shove it in the soil, it'll start to root, and you have a new plant. So a really fun and good perennial for the garden. And another variety of sedum that they have available is Autumn Fire sedum, and it looks like the blooms are a lot brighter, almost like a red color, which is really cool, where the Autumn Joy is more of a pink color. And these are in the Lowe's house brand container for $8.98. And they have yet another type of sedum that almost looks like it's a succulent, right? Really beautiful dark foliage. And this here is the After Dark sedum, and it has dark foliage with these dark colored blooms, and it blooms summer and fall. It likes full sun, and it is hardy to a zone 3 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And this one grows 18 to 20 inches in height and 24 to 28 inches in width. So sedums are super hardy, so it makes them a great container plant because you can leave them in there all year round as long as your container is frost resistant. But they are also drought tolerant, so if you plant them in a container, you don't have to water them that often. So maybe every 2 to 3 days in the summer, which is really great. And check out these beautiful dark foliage shrubs in these Monrovia containers. This is the #1 container for $9.98 on a low special. And they have this beautiful dark foliage, which looks so beautiful paired with other shrubs and evergreens in the garden. A beautiful color contrast. Now, the other great thing about ninebark is that they bloom in the spring, and they get the most beautiful clusters of creamy white and pink blooms that kind of cascade downward. So it gives it a really beautiful, kind of like a fountain effect. Just really gorgeous. So this one here is the ninebark Dark Star by Monrovia. It likes full or part sun, has big dark purple, almost black foliage, and a beautiful contrast in the garden with white flowers in summer followed by attractive red fruit. It is deciduous, so it will lose its leaves in the wintertime, but it also has a peeling bark, which provides some winter interest. You can kind of see that in the center there, which is really cool. And it gets to be 5 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide, and it is hardy in zones 4 through 8 or down to -30 degrees Fahrenheit. And they still have some of the sugar tip Rose of Sharon in stock. Now this is a beautiful Rose of Sharon. I have this one in my garden and I absolutely love it. Look how beautiful this roughly frilly light pink bloom is. And it has a little bit of red in the center as well. It's gorgeous. And it has variegated foliage, which offers even more interest on this shrub. Mine is currently in full bloom in my zone 6 garden, and it's looking lovely. You can see it still has lots of bloom buds as well. Now the sugar tip Rose of Sharon, what's great about this is that it's seedless, because traditional Rose of Sharons will drop seed and they become invasive. So you will not have that issue with this shrub because of it being seedless. It likes sun, and it is hardy in USDA growing zones 5 through 9 or down to negative 20 degrees Fahrenheit. And it gets to be 5 to 6 feet tall and 4 to 6 feet wide. And it provides spring, summer, and fall interest because even after it's done blooming, you get a lot of visual interest with the gorgeous variegated foliage. And you can see the picture here. Really pretty. Now this is in a 2-gallon container for $27.98. And speaking of variegated foliage, here is another shrub with a lot of visual interest on the leaves. And you can see how nicely it contrasts against something like a 9-bark that has dark foliage. This here is a first edition shrub, and it is the Cool Splash Dwarf Bush Honeysuckle. And it does get these tiny little yellow blooms that are right there. There's actually a little bee who is trying to get a snack, which is really cool. Now, I did give it a sniff. It doesn't smell like traditional honeysuckle, so there is no fragrance, but it does bloom. And let's check out the specs on this one. So the Cool Splash honeysuckle is a dwarf bush honeysuckle. It likes full sun to part shade, and it has white and green foliage, medium water needs, hardy in zones 4 through 7. And whenever something says it is drought tolerant, that's after it's established. So the first season that you plant it, you do have to keep after watering to make sure it survives, and then it becomes drought tolerant after that. Deer resistant and a pretty compact size at 2.5 to 4.5 feet tall and wide. And these here are a 2-gallon container for $27.98. Well, that brings us to the end of the September inventory here at Lowe's. I hope that you've enjoyed checking out what my store has in stock, and I hope that you can find some of these varieties near you. Thank you so much for spending your time with me, and I will catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please hit the thumbs up button, and please consider subscribing so you don't miss any of my future videos. And we'll see you soon.